John Major formed the first major ministry after being invited by Queen Elizabeth II to begin a new government following the resignation of the previous Prime Minister of the United Kingdom, Margaret Thatcher, the 22nd of November 1990. Formation. The resignation of Margaret Thatcher as Prime Minister came on the 22nd of November 1990, more than 11 years after she had first been elected. She had won 3 consecutive general elections, been voted into power by more than 12 million people, but had to step down because she couldn't count on the support of her own MPs. Former Cabinet Minister Michael Heseltine had challenged her leadership earlier in the November, and although she fared better than him in the leadership contest, she was unable to gain an outright win and handed in her resignation, paving the way for a new Conservative leader more likely to win the next general election, which was due within 18 months. The announcement of the Community Charge during 1989 and the onset of a recession shortly before Thatcher's resignation had seen Tory support plunge in the opinion polls, most of which were showing a double-digit Labour lead and making it seem likely that Neil Kinnock would be the next Prime Minister. Conservative MPs elected Chancellor of the Exchequer John Major as the new leader on the 27th of November 1990, and he was invited by the Queen to form a government the following day. Fate. The change of leader from Margaret Thatcher to John Major saw a dramatic turnaround in Tory support, with the double-digit Labour lead in the opinion polls being replaced by a narrow Tory one by the turn of 1991. Although a general election did not have to be held until June 1992, Labour leader Neil Kinnock kept pressurising Major to hold an election during 1991, but Major resisted the calls and there was no general election that year. The recession, which began in the autumn of 1990, deepened during 1991, with unemployment standing at nearly 2.5 million by December 1991, compared to 1.6 million just 18 months earlier. Despite this, Tory support in the opinion polls remained relatively strong, with any Labour lead now being by the narrowest of margins. Although Labour still made some gains at the expense of the Tories in local elections, and seized the Monmouth seat from the Tories in a by-election, Major finally called an election for the 9th of April 1992, which ended the first major ministry. In a surprise to most pollsters, Major won the election, which led to the formation of the second major ministry, Cabinet. John Major, Prime Minister, First Lord of the Treasury and Minister for the Civil Service. Lord Mackay of Clashfern, Lord Chancellor. Norman Lamont, Chancellor of the Exchequer. Douglas Hurd, Secretary of State for Foreign and Commonwealth Affairs. Kenneth Baker, Secretary of State for the Home Department. John Gilmer, Minister for Agriculture, Fisheries and Food. Tom King, Secretary of State for Defense. Kenneth Clark, Secretary of State for Education and Science. Michael Howard, Secretary of State for Employment. John Wakeham, Secretary of State for Energy. Michael Heseltine, Secretary of State for the Environment. William Waldegrave, Secretary of State for Health. Peter Brooke, Secretary of State for Northern Ireland. John McGregor, Lord President of the Council and Leader of the House of Commons. Lord Waddington, Lord Privy Seal and Leader of the House of Lords. Chris Patten, Chancellor of the Duchy of Lancaster and Chairman of the Conservative Party. Tony Newton, Secretary of State for Social Security. Ian Lang, Secretary of State for Scotland. Peter Lilly, Secretary of State for Trade and Industry. Malcolm Rifkind, Secretary of State for Transport. David Mellor, Chief Secretary to the Treasury. David Hunt, Secretary of State for Wales. Also attending Cabinet, Patrick Mayhew, Attorney General. Richard Ryder, Chief Whip. List of ministers. Members of the Cabinet are in boldface.